It is week 2, module 2. And this week we are talking about accounting data generation. And I chose to talk about adjusting entries because I feel like this is the most basic concept in this week in these chapters that we've read. And it is basically saying that adjusting entries can be broken into two categories of accruals and deferrals. And even from there, it can be broken down even more into 4 categories, including deferred expenses, deferred revenue, accrued expenses, and accrued revenue. So we are going to talk a little bit about the definition of that and give an example for each. Deferred expenses, according to our textbook, are also called prepaid expenses, and this is when the cash has been paid before the expense has been incurred. And an example of this would be prepaid rent. A deferred revenue is when a business receives cash for services it has not performed. And an example of this would be unearned service revenue. And another example would be if a consulting business required payment in full before the services were performed. Accrued expenses is when a business incurs expenses before paying them, creating a liability. Example of this would be accrued salary expense. So when a business has workers who are working and they're accruing those salaries and they have to pay those, that's an example. And accrued revenue is the last one. This is revenue that has been earned and the cash has not yet been received. So an example of this would be when services are performed on an account before the cash is paid. Our textbook definition breaks it down a little bit more and says there are 2 basic categories of adjusting entries, deferrals and accruals. In a deferral adjustment, the cash payment occurs before an expense is incurred, or the cash receipt occurs when the revenue is earned. Deferrals defer the recognition of revenue or expense to a date after the cash is received or paid. Accrual adjustments are the opposite. An accrual record records an expense before the cash is paid out, or it records the revenue before the cash is received. And that was Kilty 2016, page 127. And to apply this to the corporate level, on an entry level in the profession of accounting, they'd probably just be doing pretty routine transactions, record keeping, just using basic accounting knowledge. Whereas the mid-level, they're in charge of more complex record keeping for the business and reconciling those complex accounts. So they are probably taking a look at what the entry-level positions have done for the company just to make sure everything is matching up. And then on an executive level, they're in charge of the overall financial health of an organization. So they need to ensure that everything is in accordance with the law and they're accurate and they're honest and putting their best foot forward. And we're going to talk about an ethical dilemma in this situation. I think that it might be tempting for an employee to post inaccurate records. They might be tempted to not post any expenses or revenue just for whatever reason. Maybe the boss is pressuring them to, or maybe they don't want to present an accurate account. Maybe they're working with a bank trying to get a loan and they don't want to show all the expenses that they have. And so they might just not put it in the record keeping. So the Bible verse I chose to go along with this is Romans 13:7 from the New Living Translation, which says, "Give to everyone what you owe them. Pay your taxes and government fees to those who collect them, and give respect and honor to those who are in authority." And I liked this verse and chose this verse to go along with this ethical dilemma because I think it's just a nice reminder that we are called to give people what we owe them, to pay our taxes, to be honest with the government, to respect and honor those who are in authority. And so it's really a great reminder when we're dealing with situations where it would be really easy to not be honest or not be trustworthy with what we've been given. It's a great verse to keep in mind. So for the week, that's my knowledge that I've gained on adjusting entries.